Hello cosplay world, we're back with the third in a 12 video series. This is going to be a long day of recording. Ooh, in case you guys don't know, I record these in like huge sets so that I can keep my train of thought, and because generally recording these in sets is more efficient, but it still kind of eats a whole day. Okay, so in this video we're going to go over the armor on the arm. Not specifically glove, just like the shoulder and the upper arm and lower arm. If you are new to my channel, guess what? I make a lot of my armor, at least the base of a lot of my armor, out of PVC foam sheeting. This is because it's a thermoplastic. It is incredibly easy to use and thermoform. If you can work with Warble and EVA foam, it just takes a little bit more practice to be able to shape plastics. ABS is also a good choice if you're scared and don't have equipment to ventilate a room, but this is more stable. This is a good, strong, stable base for all my armor, especially plate armor. So, I'm using my good old hot knife, which cuts through plastic. I usually use it on 1/8 of an inch plastic, but it can be pushed to 1/4 if you work slowly and carefully and don't snap the head off, which is something I definitely don't recommend because it's not only dangerous, you'll just have to buy a whole new tool. That's expensive. I may have done that a few times. So, the armor is are these large shells on the shoulders, and there's one on the back of the lower arm. Those take up a lot of volume. You're gonna, if you're new to working with plastics, probably not gonna be able to make a complex shape such as those immediately. PVC foam sheeting makes kind of curves, simple curves. Complex curves like domes are much more difficult and might require something like a vacuum former, or to put slits in them in order to create a more complex shape. I use the slits to do the shoulder pieces and the arms, and there are also a couple of those shell pieces on the I think they're supposed to be like full-on scales from Barioth on the knee. So the idea here is to create a base, and then we'll work and mount things to it. It's very stable for things like rivets. ABS you can have rivets rip out of them, and you'll just need a bit of a longer shaft on your rivets and your various hardware to do it. And as you can see, we have the lines. Those are the lines I'm going to be overlapping the plastic to create a more dynamic shape. Then on the back panel, we are going to be putting just a slightly less concave piece of plastic and fit that to the back. And then we're going to be filling that with expanding foam and putting a cap on top. There was a point in which I was thinking about putting battery packs in there for various plans, but when I started going and crunching the numbers, I went, that's not happening. Right, you always have the biggest plans. I wish the sword automatically transformed on its own, and I wish I had a magnetic, electromagnetic thing on my back so I could just put it on. I ended up having to put straps on the back. Oh well. So we're going to be sanding these edges. Now the shell itself naturally has these edges, or at least a implied line on where those are. So I was also taking advantage of those lines. When you're working with complex shapes, it's really convenient to take advantage of such lines, especially if you're working with, say, like space theme things. They have lots of lines that you can start putting various small pieces together and overlap, and you don't necessarily need a large piece in order to get the job done. You can just sort of overlap the pieces in order to achieve the same effect without quite as much material, or to kind of fill in those gaps where you can't see where the pieces are. I guess the lower plates are straight up flat sections with spikes, and then you heat them up and create a slight curve. That slight curve entirely depends on the comfort of your arm, however you feel about it, and it's a much simpler build than what I would say for these sections of shoulder. Most of the plastic pieces were done fairly quickly. It's the sewing that I spent a lot of time with because I'm less proficient with sewing, and it was something that I was really looking forward to doing, because it's, I want to learn to do all of the things, I want to have all the fun and make all the cosplay. So what we have here is the base for the lower arm. It's also going to be what we mount all of the plates to. This shape was totally just templated out of my brain. I made one pattern out of like some cheap broadcloth and went, okay, that is the shape I want, and I'm going to do it. That's one of my, I guess, also weaknesses, is that I've been drafting and designing for so long that I don't use drafting software. I just make the pattern. Typically I'll just make the pattern on the material itself, so even after the construction is done, the pattern is gone. It's actually physically on the piece that I've made. I draft it out, make it, and it's gone. I need to fix that. I imagine some people would want some of my patterns to try and recreate some of the things I've done. I'm working on it. Have only so much time, and I always are on to the next thing before I think back on the hundreds of projects I've done. It also just generally takes more time to make a pattern and then transfer it. So you just skip a step. Bad habit. I need to get out of it. So this is going to be several layers. Actually, we got a layer that's going to be the base for the armor. Then we have the layer that goes around the wrist, and then there's going to be a layer that the teal trim is going to be attached to. Teal bias tape. So you make bias tape by putting it through a folding kind of crimper and then ironing it. Marine vinyl is a plastic, essentially, doesn't like ironing, so you have to be exceptionally careful when you do it. Also, marine vinyl is very, very thick. So when you make bias tape, it's about 4 times as thick. And combine that with the ostrich skin pleather, you end up with 6 layers of very thick material, which is why we're using the heavy duty sewing machine. And even then, that thing was wrecked. The armature was destroyed, and the whole tension assembly needs to be replaced. Still, to this day. And you can see I've got some pleather straps. They're basically tubes you sew in, and you put rivets in there, and I've attached some rivets. They're not hard to figure out. So this is the entire assembly for the arm. We have some studs that we have on top. Those studs, I think that was one of my major hiccups, as I was trying to just get black studs, or it's black. There's a special name for the kind of metal that it's supposed to look like. But they just never appeared, so I ended up having to spray paint some silver ones, and that was the best I could do. Here I'm softening the plastic and then punching some holes into it, and then I'm pressing the the grommets, the studs. Well, that's the word, studs, into the plastic itself, because the plastic is pretty thick and it's pretty rigid, so it won't go straight into it like it would fabric, obviously. You see the side spikes there? Those are actually entirely made of warble. I like to use warble for things that just take damage, and for sure those spikes that stick out at an angle on the side, the black ones, are going to be hitting everything. I didn't do it for the top spikes because they stick out and I couldn't justify hiding them in that way. I just kind of have to be careful around them. There's nothing to really hit it except for maybe the helmet, but that's a good 4 inches away. I guess if I'm going through doorways, it's a little risky to have those spikes made out of plastic. The thing that is awesome about warble is if it breaks, you can just reheat it and stick it back on. That's not true with plastic. You'll have to maybe glue it, but repairs and things like that. Next, we're going to go over the legs in the next video at finalcosmiccore.com. I hope you guys check it out. Good times to all. Your support means so much. Thank you.